Good afternoon, everyone. It's hopefully a lovely day where you are. The sun is shining here in Biggleswade, and I hope that you've had a great summer. If you've been away, been able to sort of take a real rest, or if you've been working through, that things have gone really well for you. And of course, it's working through that we're talking about today, because the world of consultation has not stood still. And, although obviously by next week we'll all be getting really back into it, things have continued to happen through the summer. And that's what Rhian and I thought we'd sort of help you think about a little bit for a few minutes today. So I'm Elizabeth, and here is Rhian.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. We've ploughed through quite a lot of stuff, haven't we, Elizabeth?
We certainly have. And we really want to thank our colleague Remet, who has been doing some sterling work on the research side to hopefully enable us to share with you some thoughts, both profound and interesting, over the next 20 minutes or so. Because what we've sort of realised is that this new government certainly is consulting. And the subject range is massive, absolutely enormous, as you would expect it to be. So what we're going to do is just really pinpoint a few of them. Unfortunately, as you'll see the numbers in a moment, there's no way we can do them all. But we're going to have a look at just some and try and learn some lessons from them. Because there's this thing called blunders that we hope very much will be avoided, but you need to be able to recognise a blunder. And where we got the blunders from is this superb book by Anthony King and Ivor Crewe. And Anthony King will be speaking at our conference on the 14th of October in London. I very much hope you've all got your tickets, because just to come and hear him alone is really going to be worth it. So what are these blunders, Rhian?
Of course, they're academics, and they've got the benefit of hindsight, and they've gone and looked back on so many of the disasters that have befallen policy makers over the years, and they've pinpointed the absence of consultation, and a lot of the things that are going wrong, or a consultation that was inadequate. Now, as I say, they've got a bit of hindsight. Can we today, in the consultations that are around us this summer, pick up some of the politically risky things that the government is up to? And I suppose we start off by looking to see how many consultations there have actually been.
And the number, counting through, is over 130 since the general election.
And that's running at an annual rate of about 500 a year?
About 500 a year, indeed.
Not vastly different from what it's been over the last 20 years, is it?
I don't think so. And just a look at the departments who are engaging in these activities gives you a range of the people who are doing consultation. And of course, what we've got to remember is that all we are looking at are the consultations out of Whitehall. We're not thinking at the moment about those from all the devolved governments and assemblies, or indeed the multiplicity of consultations done by local government, police, health, and everybody else. So consultation is certainly alive and well.
And we know in the Institute how many health consultations there are right now up and down the country.
Oh, we certainly do. And we're really sorry that, in fact, in our sample, we're not going to be able to share with you some incredibly important things. I mean, for example, the Business Innovation and Skills is looking at apprentices levy, which is a very important subject.
In fact, if you go onto the website this morning, we did into Elizabeth, the first thing you see on the Biz website is the new consultation on apprenticeships.
Absolutely. And you might not have realised that DEFRA has been consulting on the removal of certain places from the designated list of bathing waters. So if you were thinking of going to New Haven, Staithes, or Lyme Regis Church Cliff Beach, I don't advise you swim there, because
if that's the consultation,
that
the decision has not yet been taken.
The decision has not been taken. So if you feel strongly about that, please make sure you engage with DEFRA on that one. But as I say, it is a fascinating list, and we're just going to have a little look at some of them. Now, the ones that Remet sort of selected as being of particular note are these 10.
And it's interesting, he's got the BBC Charter Review at the top. I mean, of the 10 of them, we want to talk this afternoon very briefly on 4 or 5 of these and I think you're going to give your traffic light verdict at the end of the webinar as to which ones you think are going to be troublesome. Is that right?
And we would certainly be very, very interested to hear from all of you to see if you think, well, you agree with our analysis of which ones could be a potential blunder, or when we look back on them, realize that the blunder had been made. And you know, it's quite a good way of actually examining any consultation, you know, when you start it, to think, actually, where could we be going wrong with this one? So here we go.
And could the successors in title of Ivor Crew and Anthony King in 20 years' time be saying, ah, well, they got it wrong in 2015, isn't it?
Well, they certainly might. And of course, one of the things that you all tangle with as consultors is getting responses into your consultations. And it'll be very interesting to see how many responses we get to these. But I will just share with you one little bit of information that we picked up yesterday. Feel sorry for the people who are going to have to do the analysis of this one. The public consultation as part of the fitness check for EU nature legislation, which is the Birds Directive and Habitats Directive, an EU consultation which has just received, pause for breath, 552,470 replies.
That's right across the EU.
That is right across the EU.
Do we know how many of those were from the UK? Because we're very fond of our birds in the UK, aren't we?
We certainly are. The UK responses were the second. German responses were the top of the list. 105,033 came in from the United Kingdom.
So what we know about the 120, 130 UK government consultations, and many of them are very technical, right? The civil service does do a reasonable job, we know, of looking at who it should consult for technical details to regulations and so forth. So they will have small quantities. But I think the one we're going to talk about now, almost certainly with that, will have a lot of responses. And let's talk a bit about the BBC Charter Review. This is a Department of Culture, Media and Sport consultation. It comes in a large number of pages. It's about 85.
85, yes.
It's opened in July. It goes on till the middle of October. And I think it's fair to say that the day after this came out, all of the friends of the BBC kind of rallied to its cause and decried this as a suggestion of future government policy. It was very unacceptable. Now, interested to know how many of the 50-odd of you that are listening to this webinar at the moment have actually seen the DCMS consultation, because although it was actually much criticized, we think from a technical point of view it's pretty good, don't we?
We do. It's clearly laid out. It certainly, I don't think, would fail the Gunning 2 test for providing sufficient information. And the questions do lead you to hopefully give the consultor the information that they're going to require.
Have you got the questions there, Elizabeth? Are you able to sort of give people a flavour of some of them?
Well, it's things like, what role should the BBC have in influencing future technological landscape, including in future radio switchover? And of course, one would care about money. Has the BBC been doing enough to deliver value for money? How could it go further? But I think it's this one. Is the expansion of the BBC's services justified in the context of increased choice for audiences? Is the BBC crowding out commercial competition? And if so, is this justified?
Now, not the least interesting aspect of this, of course, is that most of you will have heard that within days of the DCMS consultation on the BBC Charter, the BBC produced its own consultation. But we've discovered it wasn't quite a consultation, was it, Elizabeth?
No, I think you could look at it more as a survey.
So if you go onto the BBC Trust website, any of you, you will find a survey with another set of questions, but basically they are questions on the DCMS consultation narrative. I mean, it's an 85-page narrative. We can't think, maybe people listening to this can think, we can't think of another example where there's been a consultation by one body, then one of the stakeholders has instituted its own survey to obtain the views of people regarding it. I suppose secondary consultation does occur with the voluntary sector, for example, Elizabeth?
It certainly does. But it is very interesting looking at these two in parallel.
The questions are quite similar, really, aren't they?
They are, and what struck me looking at the BBC Trust one is that they go into far more detail on demographics than the DCMS one does.
So would it be fair to say that DCMS look as if they're very interested in what people want to say, and the BBC is very interested in who is saying it?
I think that's a pretty fair analysis of that one, yes.
And we think this one will run and run, as they say. I think the Charter review, which you have to bear in mind, probably would have been kicked off earlier if we hadn't had the general election in May.
Yes, probably a year earlier.
It's up in 2016, isn't it?
Yes.
And it's deeply controversial. So that's one of our 5 top consultations for this summer.
And of course, any of you who are interested in the BBC, please go and have a look at it, and you might even feel like responding to it. Will you feel like responding to a new strategy for sport?
I think people should, Elizabeth, not least because we are very critical of government consultations only too often. I think, in fact, on this occasion, we should be handing out plaudits. It is a very good consultation, probably because, it's more like an issues paper, isn't it, Elizabeth?
Yes, it is.
What the 53 pages of the new strategy for sport appears to be saying is, we need a brand new strategy.
Yes.
And what are your views? And they don't have many, if any, proposals.
No, they really are actually doing what a good consultation should do, encouraging people who are interested to give their views.
So from gunning principles' point of view, gunning one, they still at a formative stage?
Very much so.
The other thing that's a feature of this one is how different government departments have got their own separate sections, isn't it?
They have, and each one is very characteristic, I think, of the minister who's actually sort of heading this one. But I was really taken by the opening. When we help people sort of present their consultation cases, even if it's just standing up at a public meeting and saying who they are, or addressing a wider audience, something headline grabbing or sort of really innovative sort of start is always a good thing. And I just like the fact that Tracy Crouch MP, who is the Minister for Sport, Tourism and Heritage, starts this with, sport is my passion. She is, of course, an ex-sportswoman, is she not?
Well, further down on that same page, I thought you'd highlighted something interesting.
Oh, I have. So she talks about, what she feels sport can offer and really encouraging and going about the Olympic Games and things. But then she comes to a line which those of us who perhaps didn't enjoy sport quite as much at school might have a very wry smile when we read. She says, I want every school child to be happy that they have a PE lesson that day. When I think of the number of times I attempted to get my mother to give me a note excusing me PE, but there we are. Maybe things have changed, but it's a good consultation.
So those of you who want to see what a consultation at a formative stage of policy making ought to look like, I think you could do worse than to look at the DCMS new strategy for sport consultation paper.
So, we can commend that one to you as a very interesting example of using consultation at the right time, and I think in the right way.
So next, we want to talk about Sunday trading.
I can't believe that it's 20 years since we sort of did the last Sunday trading round. So this is the Department for Business Innovation and Skills, and it's running until the 16th of September. And this is the smallest of the documents that we're looking at. It's only 20 pages long, and it has 4 questions, which are neatly set out in Annex B. It also, for those of us who are slightly geeky about consultation, actually, and it's the only one that I saw, but I might have missed it, actually makes reference to the consultation principles in Annex A.
Can I just mention the 4 questions? It is, isn't it, something of a mistake to think that you can measure a consultation with how many questions. And sometimes a consultation's only got a handful of questions can actually be more persuasive on government influence. I mean, the interesting thing about Sunday trading is that we've had national laws. And this is all about should we or shouldn't we be localizing them. So I think you'd find that the heart of the government's proposition is each town and city, each county or to be able to take local decisions under the localism banner about Sunday trading. And it will be controversial. I'm sure the churches will come out against it. I'm sure the trade unions will come out against it. I mean, to what extent, Elizabeth, do you think they've already made up their minds on this one?
Well, in the forward, the two ministers, Brandon Lewis and Saeed Javid, sort of actually say that is why in this consultation we are proposing to devolve the new powers to determine retail opening hours on Sundays to local areas.
But it's one of the questions: should we be devolving?
Exactly. So I mean, I think the government stance is because of the complete. I mean, if we'd looked back from 20 years ago to see the way that we now shop. We can all shop on Sundays by the internet, and most people do. The numbers are incredible. And the flexibility, and I think they cite that during the Olympics they did sort of relax the Sunday trading rules because of the numbers of international visitors to London. And I think they look across the world to see what other people do with Sunday trading, and have decided that it's time people were able, possibly just in London, where we have so many tourists.
Have you noticed that question 4? Where did you hear about this consultation? I mean, we don't often get that, do we? So whether they expect retailers to be peddling this because it's in their interest. Look, let's do one more, because I want to spend some time on the police one. But before then, the reform of judicial review.
And of course, obviously, Ministry of Justice, it's running from the 21st of July through to the 15th of September. I mean, one might always sort of say, oh, that's really covering the summer holiday periods, but we now know that in this case, I don't think anyone would say that's a bad thing to do particularly. 27 pages long, but oh my goodness, this one has got a lot in it.
Well, yes and no. I mean, it's a technical,
very technical
consultation, in the sense that it's all about letting the judges and the courts know how you are financing your judicial review. The government has what we think is a somewhat eccentric view that if the judges know who's funding it, they might not be so generous in giving courts time to judicial review. I'm less sure of that. The idea is that people who want to claim that the government or public bodies are doing something wrong, they ought to carry the financial risks, which, with legal costs being what they are, is a considerable risk. We have a suspicion in reading this that this is a done deal. The government already knows what it wants.
I think so. It's also, again, interesting just from a structural point of view, that it does have a list of the key stakeholders that it has sent it out to, a very obviously important group of people whose views they want. But
every one of those is going to say no, aren't they?
I would think so, yes. So it's almost, okay, we know you lot are going to say no, so can we see what else?
So is this really the kind of tick-in-the-box consultation? They know they've got to consult, but actually they've already made up their minds. I mean, they have to be careful because there are lawyers here who will judicially review or legally challenge this. So can we put that aside so we can spend a few moments on the police?
Indeed.
I think we want to help the police with their inquiries. Can we draw your attention to what probably is something that's gone under the radar? And if you're listening to us today from a local authority, I think you might particularly want to note that there is at the moment a Home Office consultation lasting 8 weeks on changing the way that police funding is organised in England and Wales. Now, we happen to live in Bedfordshire, and well, you know what happened in the...
Yes, in those of us in Bedfordshire, we had an extra ballot paper to fill in because our Crime Commissioner, Ollie Martins, decided that he was going to ask us if we wanted to pay more money on our council tax precept.
And we didn't, did we?
We didn't, in a very large way.
So Bedfordshire Police, the Police and Crime Commissioner thinks it is massively underfunded, and the suggestion was that people should vote for a higher precept. Now, this is not about the precept. This is about the £8 billion and how it's allocated to the 43 different police forces. And to cut a very long and complicated story, if you were to look at this consultation, you'll find that the current method of doing it is so complicated, so obscure. We've got it 3 times, haven't we, Elizabeth?
Still not there.
I know that our good friend Barry Creasy will enjoy himself greatly looking at the way that regression analysis is used. But basically, it's a complicated, not very transparent system that gives rise to some pretty unsatisfactory results. And the government has got a preferred alternative model, and that's what the consultation is about. And that alternative model involves making it much simpler and basing fundamentally on the population in your area and the characteristics of those population, which I'm fascinated to see includes the number of bars per hectare, because it's related to alcohol-related crime. Now, we have a problem with this consultation, and those of you listening, you might want to look at it and decide for yourselves. It is very complicated, lots of facts and figures, but you will know, many of you listen to this, that under the gunning principles, if legally challenged, one of the things that the courts always look at is, are consultees aware of the impact of what is being proposed? I think we've both come to the conclusion, haven't we, that actually nobody responding to this would have a clue as to who is going to benefit, who is going to lose out.
No.
Would Bedfordshire have more money or less money under the alternative model? So here's a consultation saying, do you like our new model? But nobody literally has a clue what the impact would be. In fact, I think the Police Federation have sussed this out, because we have their submission here, don't you? Gavin Hales is the Deputy Director of the Police Federation. The Police Foundation. That's different from the Police Federation. And I think they realized that this is really buying a pig in a poke, because the alternative funding might or might not address some of the inequities that they have today. So I would commend this consultation to you as one that is probably going to have rather more repercussions rather than less. And it surprises us it hasn't received a little bit more publicity.
I mean, again, it's a summer consultation. I mean, whether we are sort of seeing some of the, people went away in July, they're only just coming back. I think there could be a late rush on this one. Yes, and it doesn't close till the 15th of September. So,
and it's all about closing. We're running short of time. Elizabeth, have you got your assessment of these?
Well, I think we better have a peer into the TCI crystal ball. I mean, please disagree with us, but using sort of the system that we all understand of traffic lights, if we said, is there a blunder to come? Because, the blunders we look back on years later, not generally, weeks or months. I don't think there's going to be a blunder on the sports strategy. It would be nice to think that this consultation really takes off, that the sort of, goodwill that's been engendered, since the Olympics continues to flourish, and that everybody lives a caution. Oh, all right.
Yes. But it depends what proposals emerge out of this consultation.
True.
Right? And you need to be careful about funding, because a lot of sports and leisure is funded by local authorities. They are under an enormous squeeze, as many people listening to this will know. And I think if it is proposed, I think it probably already is proposed, to cut back on sports and leisure funding, then I think that's going to be a little bit more controversial.
Indeed. So the Sunday trading one, we've sort of got used to Sunday trading. I think the Ferrari 20 years ago, sort of people have accepted it happens. But I think the aspect of this that is going to be fascinating is localism. And sort of, so how, if you're traversing the country and you sort of suddenly think, oh, I'll do a bit of shopping on a Sunday, and you find yourself in a place that doesn't have sort of extended Sunday trading, that could be an interesting one too.
But I don't see that being hugely politically.
No, I don't think so. And neither, to be honest, do I think the judicial review funding one's going to be.
Well, a lot of lawyers are extremely upset about it. I mean, my view is that where people really think public bodies have got it wrong, they will legally challenge and they will raise the money. I mean, we've been looking lately at the advent of crowdfunding. That when the changes were proposed for accident and emergency in Lewisham Hospital about 18 months ago, it was the 38 Degrees petition platform that helped them raise the money for the legal challenge. So I'm not sure, you see, that that's going to have the changes that some of the lawyers predict.
Probably not. We will watch this space. Now, to our red ones. We think that the future of the BBC and what happens now could well turn into an eventual blunder.
And we may well have a competition between DCMS saying, we've done the consultation, this is what it says, and the BBC with a rival interpretation saying, well, we did our own survey, and this is what our consultees say. We're going to have, if you like, two separate groups of consultees being pitched against each other. And I think we all know that politically, I'm going to use this, I think, in the next chapter that we're writing of the politics of consultation. It's going to get political, isn't it?
It already is. And then I think you just listening to Rhian talking about the police funding, it definitely, this one is one that is such a complicated and very important issue, and we've got to get it right. And
will it emerge, will policy take a different turn? Because, of course, in Scotland, where I note the Chief Constable has resigned today,
indeed,
in
yes.
Scotland they amalgamated all the police forces, which in one sense solves part of the conundrum of the inequalities perceived between different police forces. I mean, the last Labour government dropped its plan to rationalise the 43 forces into fewer. And I'm just wondering whether the police funding consultation is a kind of precursor for a dialogue on the structure of police. Who knows? But you've got that down in red, I noticed.
I think that's one to look at in red. Well, you know, we're nearly at the end of our time, and we hope very much that you've been given some food for thought on these consultations. I think what it also shows is that the plethora of them, you know, we find it hard to keep up with them. And, you know, please let us know if you think it's interesting to find out, you know, what else is happening and learn that some of the lessons.
And whether something of this nature every, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months, even every month, helps our members and our supporters from keeping abreast, not in terms of what is on the agenda, but more how is the government and how are public bodies consulting on them. Because I think we are seeing good practice. We're also seeing some less good practice. I'd like to think that people would see our criticisms, if they are criticisms, as constructive.
Very much.
And we'd very much like to invite listeners to this from contributing your own thoughts as well, if you found it interesting.
So thank you very much indeed for listening to us, and we hope that you will have a blunder-free time ahead of you. And we look forward, as I say, hopefully to meeting a number of you in October at the conference.
On the 14th.
On the 14th.
In the Emirates Stadium. You don't have to be an Arsenal supporter to be there.
Thank you very, very much.